Good afternoon. It's Tuesday. It is, guess it's the 5th of October. I'm sitting here in my office. It's a little late today for me to doing this video, but I just listened to a podcast and it raised a few thoughts in my brain that I wanted to share with you. First of all, if you like my videos, subscribe and hit the little thumbs up that you like it. And hopefully we'll get these disseminated a little bit further. A lot of them have to do with religion, but not all of them. This one is not really religion. It might get taken down by YouTube. We never know, just because of the way the formats are. I want to share something with you that has been bothering me. So, right now, we have this situation where we're being bombarded with advertisements saying, get the jab, get the jab, get the jab, get the jab, and if you don't, you're a bad guy, and it falls right into the whole Saul Alinsky way to control the population. And one of the ways he says, there's about 8 things he says to do: take over the healthcare system, use welfare. There's just a whole bunch of them. But one of them is that what we need to do to control the population is to have them at war with each other, have them fighting with each other, bring up issues that cause people to be mad with each other. And of course, that's not the Jesus way to do things. The way Jesus said is, love your neighbor as yourself. So I had a very interesting thing happen recently. I was at a lunch, and there was a whole bunch of people there. And some of the people there have medical backgrounds, and most of the people don't. And some of the people were, my generation, and some of them were the next generation up. And we were talking, and one of the people, a little older, was talking about their family. In other words, their kids and their grandkids. And literally, none of them are vaxxed. None of them have the jab. None of them. And the people that were talking, I don't know if they were or not. They never said, okay? But they were totally okay with their family members not getting the jab. Another couple over here, my generation, medically background, said, well, we got it because I trust the medical people I talked to, and they seem to have all the good information, and they said it was safe, and blah, 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 blah. But I do have a child, and his whole family hasn't gotten it, and we're okay with that. We really believe in freedom, and I think that's at the heart of this whole contentiousness. I think people that have decided for whatever reason they wanted to not be jabbed, have good intentions, and they just want to be left alone. They're not putting down people that got it, that did get jabbed. They're just saying, it's my choice, let me alone. And yet what happens is the world around us, the powers that be, are trying to create this us and them scenario so that there are people opposed to each other over this issue, and it shouldn't be that way. But what happens, it winds up being over a lot of issues. I preached a couple of weeks ago, and I mentioned the fact that things are not always the way they seem. And I brought up something that wound up getting a little bit of a pushback, because basically it's that whole Mark Twain thing. People would rather be conned than be told they were conned. And it's hard to convince people that have been conned that they were conned, because they're going to dig their heels in and think, they were right. And so we have that on a massive scale, as a result of what happened in 2020 with all the violence and the riots, and this guy in Ohio got killed by a police officer. Although he was a criminal, convicted criminal, he's now got statues to him. His family's been paid millions of dollars. He's a hero. Why? Well, because it was a fraud perpetrated upon our people by an organization who used a title for their organization that seemed to have one meaning when the organization really, in their bylaws, had a different meaning. And y'all all know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, just go get the original bylaws of the BLM founders, get their books, read what they say. It's not about minorities at all. The whole movement is not about minorities. The whole movement is about changing the political system in America. And if you don't believe that, you've been duped. And I can't change your mind, because if you've been duped, you're gonna, it's be hard to convince you that you've been duped than to have duped you. And so it's been promulgated in such a way that now they're trying to make it mainstream, and you see things on the football stadiums with these slogans and all that kind of stuff, and it's all nonsense, because it had nothing to do with what these people that are using those slogans think it had to do with. And they're putting their reputations and their moxie and their clout behind something that was never intended to have the effect that they think it's supposed to have the effect to have. Now, why do I bring all this up? I bring all this up because there is an ignorance in our country of history. There's an ignorance in our country of civics. If people really understood the beginning of our country and what was at stake and why people were willing to risk their lives for freedom, they wouldn't be doing this nonsense they're doing. Because people are on the progressive side saying they want more freedom. But what they're really trying to do is put in place things that take away freedoms. The freedoms are inherent in our Constitution. And yet people want to destroy our Constitution and say the freedoms in there, the Bill of Rights, are not effective. They are effective. People fought for them. But we have an ignorance. I'll give you an example. I was reading the other day an article about one of the people. I'm being real careful because I can't say certain things on YouTube that I like to say, but one of the statues that was taken down, I'll just put it this way. In New Orleans, there was a circle. It was very famous, and it was this general's name, and it was his circle. Well, they took his statue down, and they took it down because supposedly he was a, quote, slave owner. Well, and he fought for the Confederacy. Well, it was so stupid, because this particular person at the end of the war was one of the person that put his money and his power behind reconciling the two sides and empowering the former slaves and getting rid of slavery. And people don't know that background, and so they hate the guy because he was a slave owner. He was a slave owner at a time where the wealthy people had slaves. It was not right. It was not good. But a lot of those good people let them go. And it was a very contentious time. But they're taking the statues down for the wrong reason. I'll give you another example. There's a guy named McDonough in New Orleans. They threw his statue into the Mississippi River, and some good people fished it out. This guy built all the schools in New Orleans. All the schools when I was growing up, the public schools were called McDonough schools. McDonough 28, McDonough 35, McDonough High. And he built schools for both races, for everybody. It wasn't his fault that it was a segregated education system at that time. It took the Supreme Court using the Constitution, using the Bill of Rights, to change the law of the land, to go from separate but equal to all, to an integrated society. it was they throw this guy's statue away because it's a momentum to just get rid of statues of these people that were popular and famous in the 1800s or whatever, early 1900s. My point is, things are not always the way they seem, and when people are agitated about things, they need to step back, take a deep breath, and say, what are we arguing about? And oftentimes, if we're arguing, we have more things in common than we have different. With that, I got to sign off. They're calling me. Take care. God bless.